Cobra Rattlers. I thought I smelled something.
Yo, Joes! It's another Patreon special missions request. This one comes from one of the stealthy ninja level supporters, Matthew Piggott, and it's for one of Cobra's deadliest aircraft. Are you ready?
Wild Weasel here. We're ready.
It's the 1984 Cobra Rattler.
Cobra!
Although many of the Cobra vehicles came with generic troop pilots and drivers, the Rattler came with one of the coolest, calmest, most calculating Cobra characters. But we'll get to him in a few minutes.
If you insist.
Okay, let's talk about some of the features of the Cobra Rattler.
You are testing my patience, G.I. Joe.
Well, I guess you're not as cool and calm as I thought. Okay, let's talk about the Rattler pilot to start.
Wild Weasel.
His file card reads, Wild Weasel cut his teeth in the bus wars of South America and Africa during the last decade. His knowledge of close support aircraft ranges from jury-rigged civilian conversions to ultra state-of-the-art flying weapons platforms. A mouth injury inflicted during a strafing run is rumored to be the cause of the characteristic sibilance in his speech pattern. While Bill says,
He may be a back-shooting, low-down snake in the grass, but the boy can fly like nobody's business. You gotta respect the skunk for that. Hey, what did Voltaire say? To forgive our enemies their virtues? That is the greater miracle.
Wonderful work as usual by Larry Hama, giving us not just an idea of the character's piloting skills, but even finding a way to describe what he sounds like with his sibilant S's, and establishing that he's not just another Cobra nincompoop. He's actually respected by the Joes for his piloting skills, which is rare. And he never needed anyone's help. Unless he was stuck in a tree, that is.
Help! Anybody, help!
Despite his supreme piloting skills, he was still a Cobra, so retreat was definitely in his vocabulary.
No! Retreat!
Although he sure did know how to hold a grudge.
I will have revenge!
Okay, now let's talk about the jet itself.
Introducing the Cobra Rattler.
The Rattler was released in 1984, 1 year after the Sky Striker, as an equalizer to the Joe's new aerial ace. It was a bit smaller though, closer in size to the Joe Conquest, which would be released in 1986. The size of the opposing jet didn't matter most of the time though, since the Rattlers would sneak attack and prevent most jets from even taking off.
Don't let those planes get off the ground. Dive!
Some were able to make it to the sky though.
Yeah, but they crash when they've got rattlers on their tail.
Fire!
We're hit!
And that's because of the firepower this soaring snake packed. First, there's the nose cannon, affectionately referred to as the Jawbreaker. And one advantage the Rattler had over both the Sky Striker and Conquest was the rear turret gun, which was sure to make any Joe not have a nice day.
Have a nice day, Flint.
The actual gun and canopy spins around, although the figure remains pointing forward. And then there's the Fangs, an assortment of 14 different missiles.
Fire ATG missiles in carpet formation.
With a few different ways to deploy them. This trio of cluster bombs can either be dropped all together on their own bracket for larger targets, or be removed from the bracket that attaches to the Rattler and be dropped individually for smaller targets. And all of the other missiles are removable too. Still fit nice and snug after all these years as well. And while we're looking at the underbelly, let's mention the landing gear. They have not stood the test of time. Unlike the lever-activated landing gear on the Sky Striker and Night Raven, the Rattler had wheels that had to be manually pushed in. A common problem on these vintage Rattlers is stress marks, warping, or breakage from pushing the wheels into the body of the jet, because of the thin part that attaches the wheel to the jet. It's so bad on this particular Rattler, which already has major stress marks and bending, that it feels like it's going to snap if I try to close them up.
Cobra leader to G.I. Joe. Land your plane or face the consequences.
Okay, I'll put it back down. The wheels also turn in a bit when it's sitting on a flat surface because of the permanent warping. Still rolls fairly well though, and displays just fine. Like many Joe vehicles of the 80s, there are also removable panels to reveal engine detailing underneath. The really cool thing about the Rattler though, was that it included alternate panels with bullet holes to give a battle damaged look, decades before battle damage became a common thing in toys. I'm sure a lot of kids at the time picked the perfect panels over the damaged ones thinking, why would I want my new toy to look all beat up? Oh, how times have changed. And now the most awesome feature of the Rattler, the vertical takeoff. It was a jet with the ability of a helicopter to take off and land vertically, which also came in handy whenever they had a bogey on their tail.
On our tails!
Nothing to worry about in the Cobra Rattler. The original Rattler was released in '84, and many decades passed for people who missed out on getting one when they first came out, and weren't able to afford one in nice condition on the aftermarket. For those longing Joe fans, Hasbro proclaimed in 2008 with their 25th anniversary line,
Then we'll make one for you.
the Rattler was reissued with just a few slight differences. The overall color scheme was a bit more on the purple side compared to the original deep blue plastic used, and it looked not as glossy as the original. The see-through plastic used on the canopies was smoked instead of clear this time. One major improvement though was the landing gear. It folds in nice and smooth on this version without any resistance. Another nice tweak was the cockpit and gun turret were modified to make room for the taller modern figures. In the original Rattler, most modern figures are too tall for the turret canopy to close completely. Baroness is one of the few modern figures small enough to still fit in there. Same goes for the cockpit. There's not enough room for modern figures in the original Rattler, but there's just enough space in the Anniversary Edition. The new Rattler also came with an updated version of Wild Weasel, this time with a few accessories. The visor on his helmet was removable, so Ace can now see the whites of his eyes before he blows them out of the sky. There's a knife on his leg that looks like it should come out, but it doesn't. It's still nicely detailed though, better than just having a knife molded flat against the leg. And since he spends just as much time on the ground from being shot down as he does in the air, he's got a leg holster with a removable pistol to defend himself on his way to the nearest bus stop. He may have been easy target practice in the cartoon, but if you really want to see Wild Weasel at his best, I recommend reading issue 34 of the original G.I. Joe Real American Hero comic by Larry Hama. One of the most iconic dogfights ever, a proverbial chess game between two of Cobra and G.I. Joe's best pilots. A great yin and yang tale of aerial combat. And that's the Cobra Rattler. Got some vintage memories of this venomous VTOL? Scroll down and go to town. Feel free to share the video with your Joe fan friends. It's honestly why this channel has grown to the size it is now, because of great Joe fans like the Surveillance Port, Cobra Island, G.I. Joeberg, and everybody else, spreading the nerd word to new viewers on their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social media. For more Joe goodness, check out my Instagram for some vintage-style Joe toys in the wild. If you have a request for a review you'd like to see and you'd like to support the channel at the same time, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. General and Ninja level patrons get to request any toy, show, movie, or topic to be discussed or featured on this channel. A reminder that official merch is now available on TeePublic, so the nerd in you can honor the nerd in others with your own Nerdmistake t-shirt, hoodie, mug, or other 360 swag. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Yo, Joe!